Welcome to the More Perfect Union, the podcast that offers real debate without the hate. I'm Kevin Kelton, and this week again, along with
DJ McGuire, founder of the neoconservative left, and I still don't know what that means, from Hampton Roads, Virginia.
Rebecca Kushmiter, a writer and feminist, and hoping to bring clarity to DJ in Kensington, Maryland.
And Greg Matuzak, a common sense liberal from Cincinnati, Ohio. And I cannot tell you how proud I am to actually say Ohio. It's the first time I've been proud to be from Ohio in like 6 or 7 years. So this is a good week for me. Yeah. This is a good week.
I'm gonna credit you with all the good that has happened in Ohio this week.
Thanks.
There you go. So let's get into it. Ohio it is. So much winning, as somebody wrote in our rundown. Of course, voters in Kentucky and Virginia sent a clear message to Republicans about conservative policies, and voters in Ohio sent a very clear message about how they feel about their own abortion rights. I'll throw it open to whoever wants to start on this.
So Ohio was incredible. We had 2 issues on the ballot. They were bellwethers. The issue one was reproductive choice and medical. It wasn't just reproductive, but it was also on birth control, and pretty much anything you'd want to do with a doctor would stay between you. In the language of it, there were limits such as viability. Abortion would stop at the age of viability, and it had nothing to do with like taking parental rights. And we came out like 57%. It was actually 56.6%. So really close. And we saw people voting on this in counties that were usually like dark red. The issue 2 was the marijuana for recreational use, which I will not be here next week. Has nothing to do with that. I say that. But the point being, the issue 1, the abortion one, actually had more support than the recreational
drugs, right?
We had great turnout from young people, and of course our major cities. That's where most of it. But it was quite a resounding like, hey, you have to listen to the people.
To build on what Greg was saying, this is yet another state that put abortion rights directly to the voters. They skipped the middleman of the legislature. They definitely skipped the courts and said, hey, folks on the ground, how do you feel about this? They said, oh, we want the option. Now, this is not to say all of them are going to get abortions, because they probably aren't, but they want the option. They don't want this dictated to them by ideologues. And this is, I don't even know how many times this has happened when this has gone to ballot initiatives. And, it's a message to Republicans that this is not a winning issue for them. Abortion bans are not a winning issue. The electorate is pro-choice, and they are broadly pro-choice, not just, vague exceptions in the case of, the life of the pregnant person being at risk. So what's been fascinating in the aftermath of this is watching really right-wing politicians say, oh, we just need to pro-life this differently. Like, we need to be more anti-abortion, and people will get it if we do that. I'm like, that's really not the case.
I wrote about the Virginia elections in the local blog I'm a part of called Bearing Drift. And in Virginia, Governor Youngkin basically asked Virginia voters, and they said to agree with a plan for a 15-week ban that he wouldn't call a ban, and he called it a nice moderate course of action. And instead, not only did he not flip the state Senate his way, but the House delegates actually flipped against him. And what Rebecca's talking about is effectively the pro-life movement is ignoring the headaches and the visible bruises and deciding that the best way to fix things is to find a bigger hammer to hit themselves with.
What was really interesting is at the beginning of this campaign, our governor DeWine, who not awesome, but he's fine. Him and his wife had done a commercial that has been playing nonstop, and it was just like, hey, we've looked into this issue 1. It's just too extreme. It's radical. And that was their words. It's just not for us. This can't happen.
But the language in the measure, to be clear, is Roe.
Yeah, but they consider Roe radical.
Oh, okay.
Right. They consider that. And in fact, we would hear things like, this would allow, because doctors are insane, that you could have an abortion past 9 months, which is a
that's not a thing.
That's not a thing. And in fact, in Ohio, we did not, in the last year of Roe, we did not have an abortion past the 22nd week. Just didn't happen. And luckily, for any medical reasons. So with that in mind, it was funny because as the campaign kept going, towards the last couple of weeks, the governor made interviews and he was like, what we really need are just a couple exceptions. And well, if you vote against issue 1, I promise I will come and do a rape exception and an incest. He goes, I promise, you have to trust me on this, because it's not like I would do anything bad for her. And he was like, well, I don't see why people aren't trusting me, that I'm listening to them and I'm going to give them what they want.
I just have one question, Greg. Did the Secretary of State put in the ballot language that if it passed, dogs and cats would be forced to live together?
Pretty much. The Secretary of State's running for Senate.
Oh, good God.
And what's awesome about this is he's got 2 elections. The constitutional ballot one, which he lost, which allowed this issue 1 to get on, and then this one that he was running full steam on, and he did every dirty trick. There were counties that didn't have enough voting, and he was like, no, I'm your guy. And he keeps saying, as a former Marine, obviously I have integrity and I would do nothing wrong. But Kevin, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to speak for a moment to our audience, because again, sometimes I say things that I know you guys know, but I think maybe some people in our audience, this would be helpful information. Talking about Republicans now, some Republicans have been pushing what they call a national 15-week abortion rule that essentially would say across the nation, you can have abortions up to the 15th week. But then individual states can do whatever they want because that's what the Supreme Court said.
Well, 15-week would be the hard limit, but states could have an earlier limit.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. It's not that some states could say viability. It's that you could have 15 weeks or 6.
Yes, that was my point. Thank you if I wasn't clear on that, because Rebecca, you said what I meant to say, which is that it is a trick that they are using to try to say what we're going to do is, in the liberal states that we know we can never pass an abortion ban in, such as now Ohio, nobody would have thought that Ohio would fall into that category, then we'll have a national 15-week limit. But in states that are, clearly lean red, they can have the most draconian limits. So it's really a trick to make people think, oh, we're going to get a very moderate national 15-week law. But no, that will only be for the states that don't pass a more restrictive one. So if you live in Florida and any state that, touches the Gulf of Mexico, or for that matter, if you live in Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, Utah,
Nebraska,
any of those states,
all those states,
forget about it. Forget about it. The 15-week thing will not work for you.
Well, and let's talk about what the 15-week abortion limit would mean. Those of you who have been through a pregnancy within the past decade or so will remember that you have your anatomy scan, as it's called, around 18 to 20 weeks, which is midway through the pregnancy. And that is the point at which an ultrasound technician and an obstetrician can most accurately take stock of the physical health of the fetus. And that's when they can start to see if there is some condition that is not compatible with life or not compatible with the quality of life that a set of parents might be comfortable with. So that, and if 18 weeks is the earliest for that, that means that by cutting off the option to terminate a pregnancy at 15 weeks, if you have a fetus with catastrophic health conditions, you don't have any choices. And both the expectant parents and the baby that will eventually be born may be in for a world of suffering that they might otherwise have been able to make a different choice.
We now have been tracking abortion data since the Dobbs decision was handed down, and a number of the states were able to impose these bans and these overt restrictions, et cetera, and so forth. And I was well prepared to discuss how very few or very small amount of abortion reduction was for so much political capital that could have been better used for other policies that would have saved more children. But I don't have to do that. The ease of my political argument is added by the tragedy that abortions have actually gone up since Dobbs. And what I don't think the movement understands, I'm going to address them directly. This is happening because of you. Women, trans men, and non-binaries are more afraid to bear and raise children because of what they see you doing since Dobbs was enacted. People are more afraid to start and raise families because of what you have been doing. You are literally scaring the life out of women, trans men, and non-binaries across America. And I know you don't even know that you're doing it, but trust me that you are. And I beg you, if you truly care about saving children, as I know you say you do, because you told me that when I was part of the movement, and I believed you, and I still do, take a hard assessment at what you're doing and recognize you need to go in a different direction. I remember when the Right to Life community told Bob Dole in 1995, you are not going to have a 2-child cap as part of your welfare reform, or we will not support you for election to president, because that's a bad policy that encourages abortions, and we don't want that kind of incentive out there. That's the pro-life community that can actually stand up for children, not the one that stands up for politicians who say they're going to save children, which is an entirely different thing, as we are all realizing here today.
And to build on what you're saying, DJ, abortion is not about supply. It's about demand. And you have to ask yourself, why do people want to end their pregnancies? And that's a very complex question. No two people will give you the exact same answer. And for some people, it is about health. It is about safety. It is about very pragmatic decisions that happen through no fault of anyone's own, just acts of nature. And for other people, it is because there are no social supports, as DJ just alluded to, that having a child means losing their livelihood, losing their home, losing any sort of financial security because the supports are not there. And Kevin, you just sent us an article about a childcare support system that was put in place during the pandemic, and it's now expiring, and nobody's doing anything to continue it. And what you want is people to have all the children they conceive. Shouldn't you do things to help them put a roof over their heads, like affordable childcare while they go to their jobs?
And it can be even something as simple as maintaining the child tax credit that expired in 2021, simplifying the welfare application system so people don't have to go through all sorts of paperwork to get that are put between them and their benefits. Make it easier to have and raise children, and you will see more children. But over the last 2 years, we have literally seen 2,000 children die before they were born who would not have died in a non-Dobbs environment. And the movement needs to see this, or they are going to continue being a tragic, bloody irony for the rest of its life.
So let me ask you this. As we've all seen this week, the media has made a lot out of the fact that abortion seems to have put some wind in the sails of Democrats going into 2024. Do you think that abortion is going to be not just a factor, but a large factor in the 2024 presidential race?
Yes and no. I get to say that. I like saying that. In the congressional races, it will be a very big deal. It'll be a very big deal in the congressional races because at the congressional level, the Republican Party is going to continue hitting itself in the head with a hammer over and over and over again. It may be a bit trickier in the presidential race because Trump is already starting to try to triangulate on this one. He's never really been part of the movement. He's been a politician who makes deals with the movement. And as bizarre as it may seem to us, I think particularly for for the low information swing voters, not the high information swing voters, but for the low information swing voters, Donald Trump sounds less scary on abortion than Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley or Tim Scott or Mike Pence.
All right. I hate to disagree with DJ because I'm wrong most of the time, but I'm going to say no and yes. Did you say yes and no?
That's
whatever you said. I want to say the exact opposite.
Well done, sir.
Thank you. So I don't think it's going to have as much play, especially in states on the congressional level. We are so gerrymandered here in Ohio, and I can name about 5 other states that are so gerrymandered. There's nothing we can do, and we're done. We're not going to see much movement, but where you are going to see it is in Senate races, okay, like Sherrod Brown in Ohio. So yes, I agree. Okay, where statewide, and you're going to see it in statewide offices like governor, auditor, treasurer, stuff like that. Secretary of State is one of the most important ones that everyone forgets. And lastly, as far as president, no, I don't think it's going to be the big topic that they're going to be talking about, because he's right. Donald Trump moves around a lot on it, and no one really wants. Nikki Haley is even like, look, this is more of a states thing. You saw that a lot at the debates, which we'll talk about. But you will get more people out. Young people are voting because of this issue. We have seen much, much higher voting turnout for people in the 18 to 25 demographic since Roe v. Wade was overturned. And that is where I think you'll see the biggest impact. Even if it's not being spoken, you'll see suburban housewives, you'll see them all coming out. So no and yes, respectfully.
On the presidential front, go survey women like me, women who are younger than me.
There's no one like you.
Thank you, Greg. I hope that's a compliment. I'm thanking you on some assumptions.
I am agreeing with him, and it is definitely meant as a compliment for me.
If I said it to DJ right now, he might take it as not a compliment.
Yeah, because I know you, Greg.
All right.
All right, but just if you go out and start asking women, say we lose, say Republicans hold the House and we lose the Senate, Joe Manchin, fuck you. Go ask women if they think Donald Trump would veto a 15-week abortion ban, and I bet the answer is no. We do not trust him to protect the right to choose. He might not move against the right to choose. He might not be willing to carry water for the anti-choice movement, but he's not going to stop them if they send him a bill. Joe Biden will.
Well, okay, so my take on this is that I'm concerned that Democrats are going to bank too much on this issue, and I don't think it's going to redound to us as greatly as everybody seems to think, for a couple of reasons. First of all, in terms of Trump versus Biden, in 2016, this issue was sort of on the table, not to the extent that it is now, because Roe was still codified into law. But, Trump talked about appointing right-wing judges, and there was a Supreme Court opening that had to be filled. And, Hillary Clinton sort of ran on that, and nobody paid attention to her. So I'm not sure that Joe Biden, running on a pro-choice platform, is going to really resonate with voters enough to bring them to the polls. And in terms of, let's say, the Ohio election, yes, there was a greater turnout, and especially a greater turnout amongst younger people when abortion was on the ballot. But at this point in time, I don't know that it's on any state ballots. If I was in the Democratic National Committee, what I would be saying now is, let's try to pull another Ohio and get abortion on as many swing state ballots as we can in 2024, because that's what will generate turnout.
And getting to your point, to the points that you raised, Kevin, there are attempts to get constitutional amendments like Ohio's on the ballot in Arizona, Florida, and Nevada. Now, I know Florida's not quite swing anymore, but Arizona and Nevada.
Yeah, I was going to say Arizona and Nevada.
Are.
Yeah, because those are the states that we need to be looking out for right now, because that's
Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania wouldn't hurt either.
Wisconsin is already dealing with battles in this on court elections, on legislative elections. They were talking about impeaching a Supreme Court justice before they backed out and realized how horribly, how terrible the optics were. I mean, abortion as an issue in Wisconsin is not going to be a problem.
Right, but
it can't stop being an issue.
But the umbrella that we're discussing here in all of these situations, in Ohio, in Wisconsin, is the Republican Party trying to, by hook or by crook, undermine the will of the voters. The voters are saying very clearly one thing, and the Republican Party is going, I don't think you know what you're talking about. And they're trying to undo it, not by taking it back to the voters and saying, do you want to reconsider this? But by finding procedural methods with which to undo it or to just cheat.
Right. And the last point, my apologies, Greg. I know Kevin talked about the 2016 campaign. There is a very large difference between maintaining the fourth conservative seat on what was at the time considered a 5-4 liberalish court versus this having already been done and dusted, and now a president's veto pen is the only thing getting in the way of a nationwide abortion ban, or a governor's veto pen for a statewide abortion ban, or something like this. Before the Dobbs decision was handed down, the entire abortion debate was really held in an unreal universe, because the assumption was that this wasn't really something that was going to be discussed. It wasn't going to be an issue. It's not just the various politicians who are now running for cover. There are people I know who are activists in the Republican Party who said that they were pro-life all throughout the 20-aughts and all throughout the 2010s. Dobbs comes down and they flip like a coin. Suddenly it wasn't an impossible scenario. It was right in front of their faces, and they realized how dangerous, or how up close the danger really was. I don't think anyone realized how up close the danger was in 2016. They know better now, especially the high information swing voters, who I don't worry about because they have been on red alert ever since 2017.
Did you guys, anybody watch the GOP debate the other night?
I started to, and then some stuff came up, to put it lightly.
What kind of nachos were you eating for that, Greg? Like what are the toppings for GOP debate nachos?
I made spicy chicken nachos because I wanted to see them all sweat and I wanted to see them all run like chickens from Tuesday's election.
Outstanding.
I just want to know who Trump's new tan guy is, because that guy was fabulous. Not only does he have the perfect shade of brown, he got his hair tan black. And oh no, wait, that was Vivek Ramaswamy. I'm sorry.
I didn't know where you were going with that.
I gotta say, the Vivek Ramaswamy, the fact that he's had this kind of staying power has been kind of remarkable, because I thought he was a joke. Like, I thought he was like a parody character.
But I want to go back because I want the audience to know why we all laughed when Rebecca said that she didn't think that Vivek had the staying power. Greg, could you explain what the joke is there?
Sure. Make me do it. Content warning. So If you have young kids in this room,
you might want to put them to bed now.
Chances are they party or you know this joke. So Vivek Ramaswamy has been touting his presence on TikTok. And he's like, look, I'm the only one who understands social media. I use TikTok to reach, the kids. Meanwhile, at the same time, he's also trying to make the minimum voting age 21. But let's aside that. So he talks about TikTok as being a useful way to reach out to the people. But the replies to all of his posts are literally filled with hundreds, if not thousands, of Vivek, I edge to you, or something of that. Like, hey, Vivek, thanks for the great edging, or stuff like this. And if you're not familiar with the term, it's when a male thinks about something distracting or uncomfortable or just unpleasant to prolong his orgasm.
You mean like delay his orgasm?
Delay, yeah. Right. So men in the old days used to think about baseball. So
now they think about Vivek Ramaswamy.
There are hundreds of, if not thousands, and they're individual who just constantly, that's all the replies he gets. It's kind of awesome. I mean,
well, so let's do a quick poll among the four of us. Who thinks Vivek Ramaswamy knows what those comments mean? Is
Oh, I
anyone
do.
raising?
Oh,
You
I
think
do.
he
I
knows?
think he does.
I think
yeah.
he does.
He knows.
And
So
I'll take
he
him a step
knows that
further.
thousands of guys are saying, "Bro, ew."
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure he does.
And I think
And
he's
I am-
proud of it.
I'm sure he is. Absolutely. Because let's face it, fewer orgasms has been the quiet platform of the right for the entire culture war.
So, segueing off that topic, let's bring up someone who will definitely soften your erection, Joe Manchin, who, as everybody knows, has finally decided to retire from the Senate, but is flirting with a presidential run, possibly on the no labels ticket. So, again, what do you guys think? First of all, do you think he's actually thinking of running, or is he just positioning himself to make like gobs of money as a lobbyist? What is the game plan? And I'm going to go to DJ first.
I'm not really sure what his game plan is because Joe Manchin has been wildly inconsistent, particularly over this Senate term. I mean, as someone who calls himself the conservative feather in the Democratic Party, I should really like Joe Manchin. The problem is I can't pin down Joe Manchin on just about anything. Kirsten Sinema, for all of her problems before she left the party, on economic issues she tinged right of center, and on cultural issues she went left of center. Joe Manchin just sort of bounces somewhere between center right and center left all over the place, depending on what day of the week it is. So, is he vain enough to think, "Oh yeah, I can run as the guy in the middle in 2024"? Yeah, he's probably vain enough. But I don't think he's consistent enough that he can actually nail down a slice of the American electorate. If they had nominated Kristen Sinema, I'd be very worried because there is an economically conservative, culturally liberal slice of the American electorate that is right now voting for Joe Biden because they don't think they have any other choice. And if Kirsten Sinema was on the ballot, they would be sorely tempted. Joe Manchin is just too confused in himself, I think, to really nail those voters down.
I have a different take. I don't think Joe Manchin is interested in helping Donald Trump win the election. And he would only launch a third-party bid if he didn't see that as a clear and present danger. I think he's smart enough to know how to do this math. I think this flirting with no labels is his way of saying, no, I'm not going to lose to Jim Justice. I'm just going to maybe run for president. I think this is his ego. He is walking away rather than losing. And I think he would lose to Jim Justice.
Oh,
Yeah,
he definitely lose.
And to be fair, the one person who's probably more responsible for the Democrats winning the Senate in 2006 than anyone else was Lincoln Chafee. Because Lincoln Chafee insisted on running for re-election, and he sucked away millions, if not tens of millions of dollars into an unwinnable race in Rhode Island that could have gone to other places where Republicans could have won. Joe Manchin just said, I'm not going to suck out $15 to $20 million that can help other Democrats win because I'm going to lose in West Virginia. And I appreciate that at least.
In West Virginia, the tragedy of West Virginia is that there's not a Raphael Warnock or a
John Ossoff?
Yes, there aren't a Warnock or an Ossoff waiting in the wings in West Virginia because there's been no Democratic machinery to groom them. Joe Manchin's just been sitting there treading water for so many years there's no one at the state level. And it kills me because it seems like West Virginia is a state that is ripe for a Warnock or an Ossoff to step in and say, here I am. Let's get rid of this previous generation and try something really new. Not a Vivek Ramaswamy kind of new. But
That's how we get Vivek Ramaswamy.
I would disagree for two reasons. One, I'm not sure if there are any blacks or Jews left in the state of West Virginia. Two, sort of the more serious version of that, given how white a state West Virginia is, a candidate like Raphael Warnock is not going to have a natural constituency on which to build. Raphael Warnock can build on, with his record, with his prior service in literally as the successor to Martin Luther King's church, he has a very large base from which to begin. In West Virginia, the base would be zero.
Can we talk about the elephant who wasn't in the room, Donald Trump? and his new Plan 2025, as somebody termed it.
Yeah.
Who wants to discuss what Plan 2025 is?
Oh, that's the plan where he throws us all in jail.
I know that you're making a joke, but I don't think it's a
I'm
joke.
not joking. I'm not joking.
Yeah.
He has been conferring with his legal advisors. His plan is to use the Insurrection Act to deploy military to put down any civil protests. Remember the Pink Pussy Hat March in 2017? Forget that. That won't be happening. And he also has plans to use, Schedule F in the federal workforce and other legal maneuvers to silence his critics and create opportunities to prosecute former officials who he feels that were insufficiently loyal to him. He basically he is completely telegraphing what the authoritarian regime of Trump 2.0 would look like.
I really do fear for it. When I read the article this week that said that he was talking about on the immigration front, creating vast internment camps, or whatever the term was that he used. I don't think he called them internment camps, but it's essentially what he was talking about, to hold people until they can be processed and deported. It really scares me because once you set up camps like that, you can swipe anybody off the streets, drop them into one of those things. It takes their family a few hours to a few days to a few weeks to figure out that they're missing. And then they go, hey, where's my dad? How did he get into one of those camps? Oh, gee, it was a mistake. Great. Well, let's get him out. Well, no, there's a process we have to go through first. And I really do believe, and call me paranoid, I believe that he would do this to his critics, regardless of whether they were born in the United States or they came to the United States.
He would absolutely do it to his critics.
Oh, yeah.
This is a situation where, I think I said earlier about the Speaker Johnson and the Russian money thing. I'd like to go back to a world where I was crazy. I'd also like to go back to the world where I could tell Kevin that he's being hysterical. Unfortunately, I can't, because we're in this world.
Yes.
And we have seen, there have been reports of naturalized citizens interned and some of them deported by the Trump administration. That did happen in his first term. Now, for those of us born here, I think he would rather just try us for treason and execute us rather than deport us. So, yay? No yay. But essentially, Plan 2025, as they call it, is about a complete counter-majoritarian takeover of the federal government, using it to stuff it full of, going back to the old patronage system and all the worst forms about it. Basically, taking anybody who might be a political threat to him and trumping up charges against them and throwing them against a wall and seeing if the Fifth Circuit will send them to prison.
But if Trump unmakes the civil service workforce, if he removes the career level civil servants and replaces them with his cronies, and it turns into a system of patronage with graft and bribery being the only ways to get anything done, you don't come back from that. You cannot unmake a corrupted civil service.
Yeah.
So that's just it. That was one of the greatest dangers I foresaw should Trump have been reelected in 2020.
Right. A lot of people don't know Schedule F was an executive order. I mean, it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Schedule F.
And he was planning to use it.
And he was planning using it. It has gone. It is no longer in order. But Schedule F would take
it.
Right. And it's one of those things where people who are in charge of policy, and these are people who are civil servants who have for years, who have protection by unions and things like that, and who span many presidential terms and different presidential terms, but they're always there doing the work. They're usually nonpartisan. And even if they are partisan, they still always do the work. But his point was, let's
They're
get
Anthony
rid of these
Fauci.
key people.
That's who we're talking about here. People at that level, or down the workforce. People
right.
who are career government employees. Who do the nuts and bolts of getting things done. People who are not appointed, they're hired. They are, they have a resume and an application process, and Yeah, Trump would clean house and replace them all with, I don't know, like Jared.
The thing what this comes from,
Stephen Miller,
and this is, I think
Mm.
Stephen Miller would be the next chief of staff. God help us. But I think because there is an older, from sort of the older pre-Trump conservative mantra of concern about a bureaucracy basically making its own policies. And the Reagan administration always seemed to have trouble implementing policies because there was supposedly bureaucratic resistance. What we are now realizing is that whenever a Reagan administration or a Bush administration came to power, they would look at changing certain top level policies, things that got everyone's attention at the moment, but that a lot of the deep state or the bureaucratic resistance to center-right economic policy or anything like that comes from laws that were passed, that have been implemented, and then have been forgotten. And rather than go through the hard work of figuring out which laws actually have to get repealed so that it is easier to implement center-right economic policies or even center-right social policies, if you want to do that, and I'm not saying we should, rather than go through all of that and try to figure out what laws to change, what levers to pull, and that kind of thing, the conservative movement has devolved into just hating the people who implement the laws. And so they figure if they just get rid of the people, then everything will be fine. But what's going to happen is a lot of these Schedule F folks are going to find themselves in legal trouble unless Donald Trump can stuff the judiciary full of cronies before then, which he might be able to do. But they will have to break laws to do what Donald Trump wants them to do, because Trump still does not seem to be interested in changing any of those laws that are under all of this stuff. And none of his minions right now are interested in that either, because they're frankly too much consumed by their bloodlust for breaking heads.
Okay, so moving on. New House Speaker Mike Johnson is driving us towards what might be another fiscal cliff, so to speak. He's put forth a new two-tiered budget plan that he hopes could get passed by the House and then get sent to the Senate. Does anybody have any thoughts about that? While Greg whips up some government shutdown nachos.
I guess I'll speak to it, since I think I was the one who wrote the government shutdown nachos joke.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, you can just do it, and I'll cut out my reference to it.
No, it was.
I had my mic muted, but I literally just gave my recipe to you guys.
Yeah,
and my mute
we'll have to put it in the show notes when we upload it.
I know.
I should warn you guys. I'm like Ron Burgundy. Anything you write down, I will say it.
Government shutdown nachos are the worst. Okay, because it's white bread with government cheese. It's terrible. It's the worst. We try to avoid government shutdown nachos if possible, and usually you toast the bread if you can find some sort of garbage can set on fire, or
or
a dumpster fire.
Sort of Depression era toasting mechanisms.
And with this, they're calling it the laddered CR, whatever it is. Look, as much as we all love to laugh about dupes and ladders, the simple fact is this kind of constant emergency, constant fear of shutdown, this is exactly what they want. Because the things that we need doing aren't getting done because everyone is running around like chickens with their heads cut off to keep the lights on. But the supposed funding for Israel that everybody supposedly wants is not happening because we're going through the motions over this. The Ukraine funding that Joe Biden asked for and that the Senate wants and that a majority of House members want, nothing is happening on that because we keep running ourselves around the axle on this kind of thing. And that is the plan. The plan is to get us so focused on does it shut down or doesn't it shut down that the far right gets everything that they want. They get Ukraine starved. They get the Biden domestic agenda shut. They get the domestic agenda shut down, if not the government shut down. And maybe Israel doesn't get its money, but it doesn't matter because the far right is all about stopping things, not starting things. And they are now able to stop everything by scaring us all about shutdown after shutdown after shutdown after shutdown after shutdown.
this two-tiered plan where it's like, fund some stuff now and then kick the can for the rest of the stuff. That's a non-starter. All I can think is the White House trying to figure out how to get the House to hold to the deal that Biden made with McCarthy. And all I can think of is that Hamilton lyric. We made a deal with a king whose head is now in a basket. Would you like to take it out and ask it? Should we honor our treaty? Speaker McCarthy's head? Do whatever you want. I'm super dead. Like that's kind of where I think the White House is. They're negotiating with a whole new team. And Mike Johnson's he's like in Paris talking about the Bible this weekend.
Well, Johnson better get something passed because he's only got like 3 or 4 days.
Well, I would love to be on his son's computer to see what kind of porn Mike Johnson is looking at in Paris. So.
I like that quote about, my son has a perfect record. I'm like, does he have a perfect record or does he have a burner phone? Like, come on.
I've heard of this program before. I've heard of this with principals. I've heard of it in the administrations.
Oh, no. You know who used it?
Who?
Josh Duggar.
No.
Yes.
Really?
Josh Duggar had it installed. His wife was his accountability partner, but he had a workaround. He used a Tor browser and like a partition on his hard drive so that she never got the alerts when he was downloading criminal materials.
Whoa, slow down.
No, the Josh Duggar thing, when I first saw that headline about Mike Johnson, I'm like, wait, I know that app because I have an unhealthy obsession with the Duggars and I've paid a lot more attention than I should have when he was on trial. And so I'm like, whoa, that one's real effective. I can't believe that anybody's still advertising it.
The thing is, everybody was talking like Bill Maher on Friday was saying like how creepy he thought it was that Johnson's son is his partner or whatever it is.
It's super creepy.
And I'm thinking, well, no, it really isn't, because I take this guy at his word about his lifestyle. He doesn't do that stuff. He's probably a guy that never, ever, ever does that stuff. So why would he care if his kid
or if he does do it, it's like
phone.
He's doing it on VHS.
That's awesome.
I mean,
he actually buys magazines.
He has a stash of Playboys under the bed. Like if he's doing it, it's really old school. It's not even analog.
I don't think. I think he would buy like.
He's, I bet he's got an old Sears catalog with underwear ads.
That's where I was going. It's nothing that it's a little creepier, and he has them all with the heads cut off. I scratched out.
Now you're getting weird. But the real question is it the men's underwear ads or the women's underwear ads?
That's
they have those in the Sears catalog too.
So did anybody see Bibi Netanyahu on the morning shows today?
I read some of what he said. It was outside of discussion of the war itself. It was disconcerting because it's Bibi. He's talking about long-term occupation of Gaza, which is deeply suboptimal.
But just a military occupation. He's not talking about governance, right? He's basically talking about being a security force.
I have absolutely no idea. And my assumption is that Bibi never limits himself like that. He always gives himself options to squeeze more people that he doesn't like. I don't trust Bibi to build a democratic and independent Gaza, much like we shouldn't have trusted Stalin to build a democratic and independent Eastern Europe. And we better not give Bibi the same Yalta room that we gave Stalin. Bibi Netanyahu himself is putting the democratic world's support for Israel at risk with nonsense like this. He should be saying, of course we want to build a self-sufficient, democratic, and independent Gaza. That's part of the peaceful solution, and we will do our part with this, and we need help from the rest of the world, so would you folks please help us? He's not doing any of that. And if he doesn't do any of that, he really risks losing political support for Israel in the long run. And that's very, very dangerous.
I agree with you, DJ, but I think that there's another group that are going to hold him accountable that is the most important group. I think the Israelis are going to hold him accountable, not for the loss of life on October 7th, but I think that the Israeli populace now understands that we need some type of, I hate the word solution because I always hear final solution in my head when I use that. I wish that there was a better term, but there needs to be a resolution to the Palestinian issue. And I think the people of Israel, unfortunately, October 7th was a wake-up call. And once all the smoke clears, both metaphorically and literally, I do think there's going to be another recall election or whatever they call it there. I think he's going to lose the next one because even though he's a wartime president this week, even if he is successful in accomplishing their military goals, I think ultimately the Israeli population, I think, has soured on what their leaders have been doing in their name for the last 18 years and for the last 50 years. And again, call me a cockeyed optimist. I really think that we're going to see a different government there. I think that their main issue, their main goal going forward will be to cut as many key steals as possible until some type of resolution, whether it's a two-state solution or what it might be that quite frankly, none of us can put our arms around yet. I think that's in the offing sooner rather than later.
Another thing to keep in mind is that there's mandatory military service among young people in Israel. So every mother in that country is thinking about what an ongoing occupation or ongoing active warfare means for her family. It's been an asymmetrical war for the past 4 weeks. It will level out, and the risks to Israeli service members will only increase the longer this goes on. There just isn't going to be an appetite for this to be ongoing, particularly when there's already so much distrust of Netanyahu and his ultimate goals. Mothers are not going to say, yes, send my child into this if they think it's a bad leader making bad decisions.
Agreed. And based on the polling that I've seen, if an election were held today, the pre-war coalition would be bounced. Unfortunately, on the one end, Israel's next constitutional election could be as late as 2026. However, there are some coalition members of Netanyahu's pre-war coalition who have flipped between right and left before. I'm thinking particularly about Shas, one of the Orthodox religious parties. And they could do it again. So, Kevin, I think you are right. I don't think Bibi is going to be prime minister for particularly long. But I do think so long as he is there, we need to hold him accountable. And I know you agree with me on this, but we need to hold him accountable and hold his feet to the fire.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I support him in the war effort, but I also agree with you that he needs to be held, again, accountable, maybe not the perfect term, but that Israel needs to finally deal with this issue.
Right. And it's not like Netanyahu's got a clean record walking into this situation. The man was up on corruption charges. The fact that he's even in office is the only thing preventing him from being on trial.
His whole mantra was, I am the only Israeli politician who can keep you safe. And that looks laughable now.
Okay, well, fun stuff.
Some of it was fun. I mean, maybe it's not fun for Vivek Ramaswamy, but for the rest of us, we're having a ball.
Greg, bring up a topic that we can end on that we can all feel good about.
I've got one.
Sorry. Okay.
Go ahead.
I just came over the wires. The shaman guy is running for Congress next year.
Holy shit.
Where?
In Arizona. He's running as a
for the love of what's wrong with Arizona? Arizona, check your water treatment plants. Something in your system is causing crazy. And you got it. If there's an antidote for Carrie Lake and shaman dude, just get them some treatment.
Yeah.
Arizona, it's a dry crazy.
Well
and
done,
on that note.
We want to thank everybody for listening. If you like what we do, please add our link to your Facebook timeline so your friends and family can discover us as well. And we want to throw a shout out to the person who wrote our theme song that you're listening to right now. Alan Keeney, a wonderful composer, no longer with us, but Alan, we still think of you all the time. And with that, anybody have any final thoughts going into the music?
Mike Johnson has kind of inspired me. My new business this week is I will gladly be anybody's accountability porn buddy. And for an extra $30, I will lie about it. So, yeah.
But will you install a Tor browser on their computer and
I don't know
partition
what
their
that
hard
is. I don't know what that
Hey,
is.
Kevin, is our outro music this week Lady Gaga's I'm on the Edge?
Could be.